Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm just going to walk you through the supply chain trends for 2016. Now, supply chain management is an area that is growing in terms of the size and the complexity. It's an area that over the last decade or so has become very, very complex. And the moving wheels inside that complexity from the e-commerce site to the actual manufacturing distributors is becoming very, very complicated, that you have to have more integration in terms of how the operations work overall, as well as what you have to do is adapt more to technology. This presentation is going to talk about the key areas that are going to drive supply chain management, including looking at technology, how it's becoming a bigger play, sustainability and the flexibility of the chain itself in terms of looking about how do you keep going forward as you make adjustments to your business model. We'll talk about omni-channel distribution, that's looking at better ways to reduce or look at how you pinpoint your hub and spoke, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about nearshoring. That's where we're bringing manufacturing productions back into North America, into Canada, the US. I'll talk about collaborative relationships too, and that's how all parts of the chain are working together. So let's talk about technology driven. We're in an era now where we've got significant issues facing business. The idea of you just run your financial statement numbers at the end of the month end or days are gone. What you're seeing now is the need to take the big data and be able to flip it around very quickly using analytics to basically spin that data into something that can be useful to drive business decisions. So that's going to be a trend as we move forward as part of the overall cloud operations as well as managed analytics. The other thing too is you want to be able to adjust to customers' needs and demands on demand. So the more and more you're able to address that data through different multiple devices on applications through smartphones, iPads, to get that information to your sales force, which then is able to work back through your distribution and production cycle to better equip your company to respond to trends. Social analytics. This is where you're starting to look at trends through Facebook, different social media sites to get an understanding what customers want. So the whole idea of technology driven is going to drive that data into a series of processes that will allow business to better respond to market conditions. Let's talk about sustainable. We'll never get away from this. This is a pure blueprint in terms of looking at that carbon footprint. Most companies already have sustainable reporting. This is just building on this as part of the overall supply chain, from the raw material side of the business to the production cycle to the distribution side on the retail side in terms of the overall carbon footprint to measure it. So continually you will see practices in terms of sustainable reporting to kind of emphasize where those companies are in terms of reducing their carbon footprint. Let's talk about decentralization now. The old days is you used to have retail stores and distribution centers. Distribution centers used to replenish the stores. What you're likely going to see now is e-commerce is growing in Canada. It's about 10% of online business retail side. It's actually going to grow to about 20 to 25% in the next 4 years. That being said, it's going to change how retailers operate. For example, Amazon uses different ways in terms of micromanaging their supply chains to handle the flow of goods coming out. You'll likely see something similar happen in terms of stores. They may end up becoming a bit more of a depot or a distribution center in terms of that hub area, and that's where you're getting into omni channels. It's basically taking a particular store and maybe making it a distribution hub for that area. So you may see how retail stores become a little bit differently in terms of how they operate to support the e-commerce direction of a company. The other thing that you'll likely see happen as well, you're going to see a lot more tracking. So that means more computer chips or anything else within that product that track, give real-time reporting in terms of where the goods are. It also helps companies to better manage their inventory in real time. And that's again all part of this monitoring of big data and understanding trends, but also managing the financial statements in terms of inventory control. Because within the inventory, it's a cost to carry that inventory, so you want to reduce your inventory down to better manage it, and that's what this is about. Nearshoring. This is a term that's been around for years. In the 90s, it was a big push for companies to move manufacturing to low-cost producing countries. Now, the big trend now, from 2015 on, is moving that production back to localized areas like Canada and the US. Now, what's going to drive that is multiple factors. Labor rates, hydro rates, and other overhead costs in terms of logistics. Is Canada positioned? Yes, to a certain degree, but it'll take a change in government policies from a provincial level as part of looking at keeping their costs competitive to try to take advantage of these companies re-looking at being closer to their consumer marketplace. And that's a trend that needs to be addressed as part of moving forward. Collaborative relationships. This basically means is all part of the supply chain, from manufacturing to distribution to reselling, all have to be part of the solution of working together. So if everybody's using technology properly, there should be better coordination of efforts. That way you're reducing some of that cost that can be tied up through inefficiencies with the systems of moving goods through the system. This is what this is really talking about, using technology and be smarter how you take your products from production to raw material phase all the way to the end phase into the retail cycle. And this is basically what this is getting at, so that all parties are working together to leverage the best way to minimize the cost in the system. Now, this particular presentation was briefly just to give you an idea in supply chain management, because this will impact anybody that's working in that field in terms of positioning themselves on a sales cycle, as also understanding what's happening in the trends. Thank you.